Welcome to Joy and Gratitude, your podcast on unraveling life. And today I am here with my co host, Miss Beth Mercurio. And Beth, what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, Neo, we're going to talk about moving on.
Ugh.
Moving on. And I think that's it's a broad term. We're going to talk about all the things that it can mean. But I think fundamentally, how do we use moving on, momentum, forward motion, getting unstuck? This whole idea around this mantra. And this, I need to just share with our listeners that this came from Neo this past week, having some unexpected health challenges. And I was reminded how much she's gone through. And she has shared tidbits of her story, but she has had pretty significant and severe health challenges throughout her life, which have brought her to this beautiful moment where she's been able to use joy to shift through those really challenging times. She reminded me of like the things that she's dealing with all the time that, I'm not dealing with. And I just sort of said, I don't know how you do this. How do you just persevere with your schedule, with your life, with all of the things when you have these health issues and concerns? And she said, I just move on. I'm going to let you talk about that. But I said, well, I think that's the topic of a podcast because there was such brilliance in how you said that. Like that, you could just have stayed stuck. You could have just, said, woe is me. You could have done a million things and you did none of those. You said, I choose to move on. So, can you share a little bit more about choosing to move on and what that looks like for you? Because it was really inspiring to me.
Absolutely. When you go through trauma, when you go to chronic illness, um, what I go through every single morning to just get up, um, the different pains and woes, even though they're my journey, um, they're difficult. And I know that there's so many people that go through even worse stuff that I'm going through. But chronic illness is really a difficult thing to deal with because it doesn't get easier. It usually gets worse. And I'm in a place right now where I'm having things get worse. And I said I have to move on because I learned in trauma that the normal Western health mentality in behavioral health is Freudian. And Freud is all about your past, your trauma, and digging deep into your past and your trauma. The only thing that that does, it keeps you stuck in that trauma. And then there's Alder. And Alder is the different philosophy of what is it that you want your future to be. So you take the circumstance and you mold it so you can move forward. And I've decided that that's what I want to adopt in my life. And I go through this is going to be weird to everybody, but I actually go to a gut psychologist because I have a lot of gut issues, and the gut and the brain are attached, and you react to it. And we can get into the neuroscience about it and bore everybody to death. And I won't do that, I promise. But my gut psychologist, who I love, said to me, we will not be in therapy forever. You got 8 to 10 sessions for us to figure things out. And I loved it because it was all about action. It's all about moving forward, understanding your situation and moving forward. And I will tell you, it is so much easier to be stuck and be a victim, but it is so much healthier and strength finding to move forward. And moving forward doesn't mean it's comfortable. Hell, I'll honestly tell you that every moment of my life recently has been extremely uncomfortable. Um, I don't want to go into the details, but I could tell you that there's some days that I am so appreciative and in gratitude that I woke up that morning. But I will tell you that when I do, I make sure that there's something new that I do to advance my goal, to advance my purpose, that I've reached out to someone, that I've helped someone, that I have shared, because that's the way we can live fully. Otherwise, we're not living our life.
Neo, you just shared so much, and I'm slowing down just a little bit just to listen and absorb all that you said because there was a lot of insight in there. There was a lot of wisdom in there. There was also a lot of knowledge and information. And one of the things that stuck out for me a lot was this idea of understanding. So I know you mentioned the past and this action towards the future, and that like your method is to say, "Hey, I don't want to focus so much on the past." I think it's interesting because when you said that, I sort of had a reaction of like, wow, because I just spent a bunch of time on my past and I found it so enlightening to at least understand my past. So I guess I would layer on top of that that being stuck in the past, I think this word stuck is really the word. Like stuck in the past, not great. Using that to be sort of a validation or a reason for why you are where you are, I don't really believe in that. But understanding the past and understanding how it has impacted where you are today allows you to blend with some of those things and say, okay, I know that I am who I am because of these things that happened in my life, part of my journey, my lifelong journey. But I'm going to make a different choice. I'm not going to just let those things that impacted me continue to impact the same narrative, the same story, and me taking the same actions over and over again. Now, that is super hard. And I keep having to, so this idea of move, I feel like is very clear when you are stuck for very large reasons like we just talked about big trauma, and you and I always say, and I love it when we couch, trauma is big, little, right? You have micro, you have big. There's the definition is super broad, but this understanding of like what it is that has impacted you and your ability to say, I am going to move, I'm going to do something different, I'm going to get out of this pattern that I'm in and make a choice. And I think what you also said that is so powerful and important is you're doing that every day. This isn't a one and done. This isn't like I'm going to choose to make a change and then when the change doesn't happen all of a sudden you get disappointed and you're back in the pattern. No, this is like every day we have to say I'm going to choose to move forward today. And that might be a tiny step today. It might be like I'm going to get out of the house and enjoy the sunshine today even though I have no time and I'm really busy and I can make a million reasons why that isn't something I should do. Like I told myself that I would do that for myself. So I'm going to do it. So this idea of movement, and I will share a little story. This morning, I was talking to my daughter, Lila, and she was commuting to her class early in the morning. And I was talking to her about it. I said, oh, today we're going to talk about moving and just moving on. And she said, you know what it is for me, which is just such, I love, like we said, we've had our talks about wisdom and out of the mouths of babes. She's like, it's just about getting started. She said, like, you just have to start. She's like, because if you don't start, then like later you're going to feel the impacts of not having started. And then you just build on getting down on yourself. She goes, is you, at least if you start, even if it doesn't get you where you need to go, you can look back and say, I moved. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So I am holding up for people listening. I also have this little tag. So Lila got me to remember that I have this beautiful little tag with a rainbow and it just says, start somewhere.
Somewhere.
Start somewhere. Just don't stay stuck. Just start. So I had to share that because I thought it was just so brilliant. So it's this idea of just start. By doing that, you are moving. You have made motion forward towards something that you care about, towards something that you say is important to you. And there's such power in just moving forward. One foot in front of the other, one movement out of an old pattern.
It's everybody's heard that story of, I can't remember his name. I'm so terrible with names. But it's an admiral that he's written beautiful books, and he talks about making your bed. It's one step that you've conquered in the morning. And even if you had a horrible day, you come home to a made bed. And that's because persistency always wins. You see, being persistent, taking that step, taking that micro step again and again, not wanting fast results, understanding it's going to take time, but being persistent wins. When I had my major trauma, excuse me, we got a puppy. We had lost our dog and we got a puppy. And I had to select the name of the puppy because my husband selected the name of our previous dog who passed away. And I selected the name River. And the reason that I selected that name was because of the power of the river. You see, rocks are all over the river, and rocks form walls. But the river is persistent, and the river cuts through the rocks and makes its way and keeps flowing. And there's this beautiful quote by Jim Watkins that says, "A river cuts through rock, not because of its power, not because of its, but because of its persistence."
Can you read that one more time?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. A river cuts through rock, not because of the power, but because of its persistence. Jim Watkins. And when I had just survived a very traumatic situation, she was this beautiful red Doberman, and she reminded me of a flowing river. And the fact that that energy, that determination, that stoicness of a beautiful Doberman cuts through what's in its way persistently. And I care so much about flow and we talk so much about flow
Me too.
because flow only happens if you are in movement, if you are in action. You can't flow if you are in woe is me. You can't flow if you decide that your past defines you. I really love my past because it tells me truth about who I am and where I've been. And I use it as fuel for my flow, not as a reason to stay without movement.
It's I had this big, beautiful sigh because most of our listeners know that Neo and I are on this journey together and we still continue to just get to know each other. And in some of these conversations, you get to witness first time things happening. So I did not know that your beautiful puppy that helped get you through your trauma was named River. But I will say to you, I continuously use a visual with my clients that actually my coach taught me, and I love it, about rivers, and that we picture ourselves in the middle of a river. That, and I, for me, because of my past, which I own and appreciate, which is around achievership and control, right? I picture rapids just because that's just probably, that's probably left over. I should picture a lovely flowing river that does not have a lot of rapids, but that's not what I picture. I picture the rapids. I picture literally being in them with my knees up, having to be ready to brace whatever rapid or is coming, but I am in flow of the river and the river is going somewhere. So,
Yeah.
like when you're in a river, you are moving. But the cool part of this visual, which I love as well, is there are always banks on a river. There's always two sides on a river. A river cuts through something, as you so beautifully described. So, using those banks, one of the things that we talk about is depending on who we are, we have things that make us feel comfortable when that river is going a little too fast, when things are feeling out of control, and we need to get sort of back into our flow. right? We can go over to the side and we can hold on to the riverbank for a while to get rejuvenated and re-energized. And in her depiction, which I quite loved, one side was rigidity and the other side was chaos. And depending on where you are in your life, holding on to one of those sides can really help you to then get rejuvenated back into, okay, now I'm ready to let go of that riverbank and go back into flow. But that we all need rest. We all need to go over to the side sometimes. I might need, for me, a perfect example is I might need to implement some structure to feel okay, right? When I'm really feeling like I'm tumbling or I get stuck in an eddy or the flow is a little too much, I feel overwhelmed by what's happening in that river. I go over to the rigidity side. That makes me feel much more comfortable. I implement some structures in my life. I put routine back into my life if I've lost it. And I get the goodness out of that to then say, okay, now I'm calm again and I can get back in so I can start moving forward. Because think about it, when you go over to the side, what are you doing? You're not moving, you're holding on to the bank. So as we're talking about this, there's this whole new level of movement and holding on when you need it, but then letting go. And that most of life we want, our aspiration should be to be in the river, flowing beautifully, and knowing that when we need the riverbanks, we can get them, but that we're always moving forward, sort of in that flow of life. So I just, once again, am, I'm just so heart touched that, of course, you hadn't shared that with me. And yet here we are talking about river and flow as it relates to movement, and it's such a beautiful visualization for me, and now I have a new visualization of a beautiful red Doberman that's also got river. I've got 2 beautiful visualizations I can bring into my life when I think of that word now.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I actually love the power of our visual, the river, because the river has so many different aspects that are life. It has that stillness, those the ripples that look like diamonds. And that's almost like when we receive the fruits of our labors. Those are those little diamonds when the river is nice and still and the sun is hitting it. So just know that life is not a quick, fast moment. It's bumpy. It has rocks that will show up when you least expect them. But the beauty of it is that it's all for a moment, and we have to just keep in flow. And before we started the podcast, I was talking, and I am being total vulnerable right now. I don't really care. But we were talking about my cardiologist, and I went to a new cardiologist, and he was horrible. He just plain out horrible. Did not um, did not prepare for my visit, which is one of my biggest pet peeves when a doctor doesn't read my chart. Um, and then was questioning, was I feeling intense enough pain? Uh, and my, what was happening from the medication and so on. And I am so happy that I am older and wiser than I was before because I let him have it. I let him have it, and I let him have it because I deserve better. I also let him have it so he knows, and I stated this to him, that he should not do this to other people. And I let him understand that my symptoms are not emotions, they're real symptoms. And I travel a great deal. I want to wake up at my hotel. I don't want to be a victim in a hotel. And my issue right now is that I'm fainting a lot. And it's because of I have very low heart rate and I also have low blood pressure. And there's nothing more scary than being at a speaking engagement or an engagement with a client and not knowing when this is going to happen and not knowing where I'm going to end up or if I'm in a safe place when this happens. And the fact that he did not care about what I was dealing with was just insane. So, um, I've made my decision that my health is more important than somebody else's MD. And I'm going back to my cardiologist in Boston because I know that I'm going to get the care that I need. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're the only ones that know what they're doing. But for me, I wasn't dealing with issues when I was getting my care there. So I'm going back. And that is exactly what I meant by moving on.
Mm.
Knowing that sometimes you're hit with a punch in the gut, and instead of just wallowing in the pain of it, I am looking for my solution. I am moving on, and I will not settle for bad behavior. And settling is something we need to talk about because right now, too many people are feeling that they need to settle. Settling is a disastrous action.
Say more about what you mean by the word settling.
Settling is when you just basically say, well, I don't have an option. Well,
Mm.
it's okay. It's not that bad. I,
It
I,
could be
I
worse.
it could be worse. I could deal with that. And no, you only
Mm.
have one time at this rodeo that is life. Don't settle. Don't settle in relationships. Don't settle in your healthcare provider. Don't settle in a job that's making you miserable. You have talents, you have capabilities. Find your way. Just don't settle. Does that mean that you have to plan, that you have to have a strategy, that you have to set some goals, that you have to have initiative and persistency to move on? Yes, but don't settle.
I love your energy was I was like right there with you. I was like, "Ooh, persistency, go like yes, yes, yes." And I think this idea of movement, move. I just think about the term. I just think about games and all the places where like what's your next move? How can you move? And if I really think about it, so much of the work that I do is getting people to understand they have moves.
Mhm,
Literally. Like whatever you think when you say like I don't know, I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't sometimes you just need and that's where we can also provide to each other. As I'm saying this, I think to myself, Neo, the beauty is if we know how incredible movement is, right? Just making a move. It might not even be the best move, but it's a move. And from that move, you will learn something else and you can make another move. For those of us that are in that space, and I'll call that a space of movement, a space of it, understanding possibility, really looking at like what's possible, what other opportunities can I create? What else is out there for me instead of just like being fully stuck or settling, as you said. Settling is a great other word to describe that stuck feeling. We can help people. That's the beauty, too. So, not only are we trying to get our listeners and people that are watching this to say, every time you have that feeling, a little bit of the woe is me, a little bit of the feeling like you don't have opportunities, there's no options, there's nothing else I can do it could be worse. Like maybe that's that moment that you go, what other moves do I have? There are
mhm,
always other moves. And if you
absolutely.
can't see them, and this is the beauty, if you're struggling to see that you actually have other moves, that's when you like phone a friend. Like seriously, you don't have to do all of this alone. But if you're literally like, I feel like I don't have any moves, call someone because you always have moves. And sometimes you just need somebody else to help show you you don't what are you talking about or let's actually like let's just experiment and try that move or what would it feel like if you think if you did that what might it feel like to get you to loosen up a little bit And maybe honestly, in the beautiful way that we're talking about our river, maybe the friend, the person that you can call to help you see what your moves are if you don't know what they are, that's your riverbank in some ways.
Mm.
You know? You might not be able to do it all the time. Sometimes you might have to go over and be like, "I don't even see my moves and I need some help." That's your riverbank. That's either creating a structure or being more chaotic. Some people do way better on the chaos side. That's what they need to actually feel better and more in control. So I love this idea of like riverbanks being people, being humans, but our overall goal is to stay in movement down that river, creating the best life that we can for ourselves.
Yes. And that is where we are. We are in flow like the river, and we are in movement because we know that to untangle, you have to be in action. To that, what is our joy playlist for today? And I'm thinking River and Roads by The Head of the Heart. This is a sweet song, and it's an indie artist, but it's a sweet song about moving on and um, staying consistent and persistent in spite of challenges. So, with that, I hand it over to the Gratitude Rocks, Beth.
I'm here. Hopefully, everyone can hear the bag. If you can't see it, you can listen to those rocks moving around. Let's see. Today, it's laugh. It's laugh, which I feel like have we gotten laugh? I can't remember if we have it, but this is always laughter and life and giggling. This is my new, I've been trying to use that word a lot. Doesn't the word giggle just make you want to giggle? I mean, that
Absolutely.
word, it's the best word. Let's
Yeah.
giggle. See, that was like the best giggle. So, laughter, I do believe this is the remedy, one of the remedies of life, right? So, if we're struggling with movement, laughter, a belly laugh, putting ourselves in a position to think about something funny or be with people that lighten us up can often unlock. We talk about being tangled up. Laughter can often untangle us just enough to start to see different moves, make different plays, do something a little bit different. So I love this because we talk about schools, skills, and tools. And in this context, laughter and laughing, I think, is a beautiful tool for movement, for unlocking our potential, for understanding how many moves we have in this beautiful life.
You can't take yourself too seriously when you're laughing. And that really lets you be unstuck for that moment. So it is a magical tool. And with that, I say to all of you, enter into your day with joy and gratitude. Thank you. We look forward to next time.